Welcome, my name is Per Schoffers and I'm the founder and CEO of Atenga. This is the second part of 6 short presentations on price optimization. Each part is about 10 minutes long. What you will learn is how with optimized prices and the processes necessary for price optimization, companies can fight commoditization, downward pricing pressure, and increase both sales and profits. These presentations summarizes what we've learned from making several hundred price optimization projects in all different industries. And I will use a number of case studies in this presentation. So while it's possible that your industry is covered, it is unlikely. So please then think, how should this apply to me, to my company, to my circumstance? What can I learn? In the prior part of this series, I talked about commoditization, why it happened, and how you can fight back. And let us continue to examine where the loss of pricing power comes from. More often than not, it comes from companies who view the marketplace as homogeneous. They believe that all buyers have the same criteria for selecting a vendor. But that is not so, as we saw in the university case in the prior portion of the series. In every market there is ways to differentiate and gain pricing power, sometimes by much, sometimes by little. Consider something as commoditized as gas. Gas prices are higher when the gas station is close to the freeway on-ramp. This takes leverage from the simple fact that you don't want to run out or run low on the freeway. It takes an advantage of convenience and location. Even gas in the middle of nowhere have higher prices, taking advantage of your lack of alternatives. And let me give you a short example. On the 15 freeway between Los Angeles and Vegas, there is a 50 or so mile stretch where there's only a single gas station. Guys, there is twice that of what you normally would pay. A whopping $8 or $10 by now, I guess, per gallon. Not many people buy gas here, of course, but for the few who does, it's enormously profitable for the station. And people still buy gas there because even at that cost, it is more convenient and cheaper than running out. So the lesson learned here is that even in such a totally commoditized market or product like gas, there are the opportunities to differentiate and gain a little bit of pricing power. In this case, based on location. Another very common reason for loss of pricing power is simply that the company failed to deliver the message about their uniqueness, failed to deliver their particular value proposition. It happens when salespeople or the people responsible for sales becomes order takers, often because they don't know their company's differentiators, don't know the unique value proposition, or because they're not trained to deliver it, or sometimes because the company don't have one, or haven't bothered to figure out one. Because the company have given up. Because the company have decided, consciously or not, to become a commodity. But in some cases, fixing this could be so simple as child's play. We're going to look at the price list for a company selling sticky labels. Their sales tools was this price list. They sent it out to customers and expecting them to call in with orders. Unfortunately, it is an example of a poorly designed price list. But still, it looks pretty typical, don't you think? Anyway, the price list includes the SKU and some very basic data on the product. Size, for example. Also, number of labels per roll. And the price. And the price is in boldface and it's emphasized. This inevitably generates downward pricing pressure, as it drives customers to buy the cheapest product to meet their size specification. Now, here's another price list for a company selling exactly the same kind of labels as the first company. And what we have here is something very different. We have product info, we have a strong value proposition. This was missing in the prior example. We have more detailed product information, and finally we have the SKU. But what about the price? Well, here's the trick. There is no price. Once the buyer knows what product meets the specification and the value statement, decisions will be made without knowing prices, or at least decisions are made with consideration of the product value, not only the price. So once the product is decided, the next step is to look up the price, and here's the SKU we just looked at. As customers cannot easily compare product on price alone, the price have effectively been taken out of the decision consideration. And when it is, a preference for buying the cheapest is removed. Do I need to say that the first company we looked at is small and with razor-thin margins? The second is a Fortune 500 company and something that's called the pricing champion. I will discuss later on what that is. So, simple. Let me give you another simple example. A restaurant menu. This one encouraged companies to make their food choices based on price. In fact, not only is price neatly lined up for easy comparison, here even prices are in price orders. This menu generates a purchasing bias towards lower priced items. Probably unintentional, but easy to fix. In this menu, can you easily see prices? Can you easily compare them? No, you cannot. Prices are, in fact, clearly marked, but they're not lined up, and they're therefore much more difficult to compare, and menu items are not in price order. This menu allows the guest to make the choice with much less regard to price, and will not generate the same bias towards cheaper items as the first menu would do. But of course, changes like this are not going to make a company take off as a rocket. But they're so simple and can make somewhere between 1, 2 or up to 5% difference in revenue. For companies with thin margins, that surely makes a difference. Loss of pricing power also happens when companies don't know their customers' willingness to pay. Don't know the variables within their offering that increases willingness to pay. This also self-generates downward pricing pressure. Timidness to pricing. It leaves money on the table. We're going to explore this with a company selling power drills. The company used cost plus the fixed margin to set prices. This landed their prices for the 3 models they had at $90, $95 and $120. The customer perception, though, this prices generated was the following. With almost the same price, drill 1 and drill 2 must be almost identical, so why spend the extra $5? Customers therefore migrated to drill 1. The gap between drill 2 and drill 3 is large, and it made drill 3 look so expensive that few customers wanted the premium product. And as you can see, of all the drills the company sold, drill 1, the product with the lowest dollar margin, generated 3/4 of sales volume. The company then conducted what's something called a cross-price elasticity study. And as a result, they decided to change the price of drill 2 from $95 to $107. A simple change. And this changed the perception landscape. The higher price of drill 2 became a message of better quality. And since the gap to drill 1 was larger, drill 1 looked too cheap, driving customers to drill 2. And the gap to drill 3 was smaller, so more customers decided only to pay $13 more to get the best. It had a dramatic effect on the product mix. Suddenly, drill 2 at the higher price became the best-selling product, and also sales of drill 3 almost doubled. So what was the result of this small price change? Well, revenues for the product line increased with 14% and gross margin with 20% from one little price change. Quite amazing. And finally, downward pricing pressure happens because salespeople don't know how to defend their pricing. They're not trained to set up the customer interaction already from start to deflect any discount requests. They don't know or are not trained to control the sales conversation, to keep it away from pricing. Because if the conversation is about pricing, the salesperson lost. They don't know how to defend the unique value and the benefits your company has. But let's examine something else. Some of the reasons a customer leave a vendor. There are, of course, natural reasons that you have no influence of, and I'm not going to go into them here. But there are others that are quite common that we can. And the issue here is that we are also expert. My company is expert on what we do. Your company is expert on what you do. We provide something of value to our client, and we focus on the value we deliver. It is that value that keeps us in business. But since we're humans, mistakes will happen. We or some of our employees will fail to do something at all, or fail to do the right thing. But mistakes can almost always be corrected, unless they're too frequent and too severe. They are rarely the reason for customer attrition. Instead, customer attrition happens when we fail to continuously sell. Because we focus on delivering the value, we often forget reminding our customers of that value. But it can be something very different too. Let me tell you a short story here. A client of ours were very successful in getting long-term service contract with one of the best-known brands, with several of the best-known brands in the nation. And they generated tens of millions of dollars per year for these brands. But curiously, just about every of these customers had a lifespan of about 3 years. Then they cancelled. The CEO came to us with this problem. He thought pricing was wrong, and we found something rather remarkably different. They had a VP who was the account manager for these key customers. She was young, attractive, and when we surveyed and interviewed their customers and their non-customers, what we found was quite astonishing. This young, attractive female had such a foul language and such an abrasive way that eventually they just quit. They didn't want to deal with her anymore. Of course, the relationship started off well, but after a while, this side of the person came out, destroying our client's business. None of these unhappy customers found it appropriate to tell the company, but we did. So, let's summarize what we covered today. In the first part of the series, I talked about segmentation, and here I'm talking about it again, because it is so important. It is segmentation and a deep understanding on what each segment has value drivers and what they're willing to pay that forms the basis for gaining pricing power. And sometimes companies simply shoot themselves in the foot and self-generate downward pricing pressure and commoditization pressure. And when they do, the fix can be very simple. And companies forget to continuously sell to customers they already have a relationship with. Customers want to be treated to customers all the time, even if you know them for a long time. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this part, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next part of the series.